I've had a lifelong obsession with cars, and it came from hanging out with my dad, who was equally obsessed by cars.
Yeah, so you've got 3 cars here. You've got your mum's Hillman Imp, your dad's Yellow Rover, and your Renault 18.
Yeah, my Renault 18, I'll do in reverse order. My Renault 18 was called the Claw.
Oh, yes.
And
why?
It was so dangerous. I drove it when I was like 18. And I was driving it back to London once, and I took it to the local mechanic.
Yeah.
And he was fixing something on it. And he came out and he said to me and my mum, he went, I seriously recommend that you scrap this car immediately and you don't drive back to London in it. It's a death trap.
Oh my God.
And then we got outside and I went, I'm gonna get back now. Mum goes, yeah, you'll be all right.
Wow.
It was a death trap. And it was called the Claw because when I first started teaching, I lived with a mate called Jeff who wasn't working. He was just sitting at home in his pants eating my food all day, and I was going in to teach those and
well, imagine what a diary entry that is. Weetabix gone. Class 7G or a pack of... What was the... Was it a small car?
Well, like a four-door family car, awful. But it was called the Claw because every morning it wouldn't start when I had to go and teach.
Yeah.
Every morning it wouldn't start. And the only course of action I had was to get Jeff out of bed, which is good because I came home once and he was in my dressing gown eating my food.
Oh.
Incredible. After I taught those kids all day.
And did you like him so much that you let him get away with that?
No. I put a lock on my bedroom door in the end, and I kept my food in there. Anyway, I would get him out of bed every morning and go, the fucking car won't start. And he'd come out in boots and his dressing gown, and he would push me up the road on his own, and I would bump start the car every morning. And one day, and to this day, I don't know why, one day I could hear him behind me puffing and wheezing, pushing it along before I bump started it. And he was just repeatedly shouting the Claw at the top of his voice.
Oh, right.
He was just going, the Claw! The Claw! And so it was called the Claw from that day forward. I don't know why.
But that's what I love about you. You've got so many... It feels like everyone you knew was mad.
Yeah. But they weren't. I was just clocking every time something vaguely weird happened. I clocked it and went, I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and presumably you're going to school that day, just laughing at the fact that you can see your mate in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
Wearing your dressing gown on his way to eat your Golden Grahams.
That's it.
Shouting the Claw in your brain.
Shouting the Claw over and over again. I found out it's a Motorhead song, the Claw.
Right.
So he was quoting Motorhead, but I didn't know that at the time. So it just became the Claw. I loved the Claw. But cars, cars generally.
Are you, what's that phrase? Are you a petrol head?
Well, I'm not in that I don't crave the grunt of power. I've always seen them as cars as... When I was a kid, all I wanted was a den, right? That was my whole childhood obsession, was a space of my own. Because in our house, there was no space of your own. Like bedroom doors were booted open first thing to be cleaned, and there was no... And I think that's normal. I'm not having a pop at my mum, but there was no place... It's interesting, I think, like in my sister's house, my niece's bedrooms are sacrosanct and not to be entered because they've got their own space. But when I was growing up, it wasn't a thing that kids need a space.
Yeah.
And I think I've always seen cars as a den on wheels.
I see.
And like in recent years, I've probably told you, I've bought a motorhome.
Yes.
And I think it is just the fulfilling of a lifelong ambition to have a space that no one else is entitled to be in. And I've always seen cars as a den rather than a sort of, let's get the power, let's get this gassed up and start.
Yeah.
I just see them as a
sanctum.
As a little safe space that's just mine. And the more gadgets a car had, the better. So I spent my whole childhood trying to talk my dad into buying a car with electric windows. Yeah. That was the big obsession. And the Rover that I wrote down, the yellow Rover, that it had cunt as a number plate, CNT 868T.
Yeah.
And it had electric windows, and I just used to go and sit in it every day and just put the windows up and down.
Yeah.
Like a like an old school village simpleton.
Where's Greg? He's hanging out in the cunt.
He's just putting the windows in the cunt up and down.
It's so funny.
I love that car.
But presumably that exists now, but that wide-eyed bafflement and astonishment at things like electric windows. I remember the first time we got a microwave in 1988, and that genuinely being an extraordinary moment that we all put a potato into the microwave.
Yeah, and all stood round, right?
Stood around and watched it.
Yeah.
And then Mum got it out, and we kind of all ate a bit from it. And but it was like we were discovering fire. It was hot. It's a bit hot, isn't it? It's a bit hot. But
exactly.
But it was so.
And the idea that you would need to automate windows when all it was to put it down was this movement for a few seconds. And if I was being particularly negative, I would say that things like the invention of electric windows were the tip of the iceberg of the automation of society.
You think that was the beginning of the end?
No, but I sort of do. We don't need to have a button that puts a window down.
Yeah.
Right? That's just people sitting around going, well, we've designed the car. Well, let's start fucking gilding this lily.
But it's funny, isn't it? It's all there were so many more sort of gadgets and gizmos. And do you remember tracking? Do you remember that on your video player? Sorting out the tracking.
Yeah.
There'll be young people who have no idea. There was like these two kind of lines that would go across the screen when you recorded something. And it was the kid's job to get underneath the video player to sort the tracking out because your fingers would reach underneath.
Yeah.
Whereas, and it was that excitement of kind of sort of you could fix things.
And now we don't know. Now we don't know. All of those things are done automatically for us now. And now we don't know.
Yeah.
So there's going to come a time when if society had to start again, we don't know how that stuff works anymore.
But it's that, like imagine telling some of your uncles or your granddad that one day you'll be traveling in a car that could heat your bum to the setting of your choice.
Right. And heat my hands. My car's got a heated steering wheel.
Has it really?
Yeah. I mean, what the fuck is going on? And I do think, I wonder how these technological advances are impacting us.
Do you have fantasies of going off grid?
My mum's not been well lately, and so I've spent a lot of time with her. And to kill time the other day, I did some wood chopping, and I spent the whole day cutting back a wooded area in my mum's garden and opening up the view, and then stacking the logs. And I can honestly say it's the happiest I've been for 10 years. And I think it's because we don't do stuff anymore.
Yeah,
we don't physically do stuff.
Isn't it? It's sort of that depressing thing. Like my granddad's nickname was Ticker because he could fix stuff. So I used to call him Ticker. And I remember the first crash I had was my Peugeot 205, and I accidentally hit a snowmobile that was trying to get rid of snow. I sort of like skidded into it. The only day it snowed in 1997, it was like the slowest crash ever.
Wow.
Properly knocked the front of it, and within 2 weeks, my granddad had fixed the front, sorted out the kind of bumper, everything. So it looked like nothing had happened.
Right.
But
he learnt those skills.
But that would cost me now thousands to repair everything. And my granddad was like, "You got to do this, pop it out." Kind of, I just don't have any practical skills. Who does these days?
No. Well, I want them.
Yeah.
I want to rewild myself, Russell.
Yeah.
I really loved that day gardening.
It's funny as well. Like, given that my wife's a doctor, I find myself, I read about stuff you can do to kind of, make you better. And one of the things I read about was a thing called earthing, which is apparently if your feet are always touching the ground with no shoes.
Yeah. I've heard about it.
Yeah. Well, of course. Yeah, we're in similar lanes.
Yeah.
That reduces inflammation. But as a consequence, you do have to walk around barefoot everywhere.
Yeah.
And
that makes you ill.
Well, it just gives you a lot of looks.
Yeah.
And your wife's family are like, why is he doing that? It's just he's read a book.
He's read a thing.
Yeah.
I'm faddy as well. Yeah.
But you've got the thing that I encourage you to buy, the infrared light machine.
I still use it.
Yeah.
Even though I've been told by not just your wife, by several medically trained people, that there's no medical validity to sitting in front of infrared lights, I still sit in front of it. Yeah. Topless.
What?
I don't know why I'm
No,
topless.
no, same. Topless, and I'll roll my pants up to get as much skin as possible.
There you go.
But the line that got me is my wife looked at it. I showed her the online brochure for it, and she said, "It's like something from Brasseye, you fucking idiot."
Yeah.
Which is, for a certain generation, it's the perfect. Oh, jeez, I've been tricked again.
Well, that's it. You see, what both of us should be doing rather than sitting in front of an infrared light box is we should both be out chopping wood.
I think you might be right.
I do think that's the case.
I think they'll definitely become. I presume this exists already, but there will be places where, you know, holidays, hotels. The whole point of which is to hand your phone in, you know, take all this.
Stop staring at a screen like an open-mouthed zombie.
Yeah,
and using only your finger physically and do something.
Yeah,
it's sort of what I increasingly think we should be. I went to New Zealand. I decided to take some time off this year. I went to New Zealand.
Yeah. Because I tried to get hold of you for the TV show, and our mutual agent. I said, "Where's Greg?" And he said, "He's in New Zealand somewhere."
He's gone. He's gone wild.
Yeah.
I was the oldest backpacker in New Zealand. Yeah,
That's a film title.
Listen,
Oldest backpacker.
I'm ready. Call me.
I'd love to see you in that.
But I just drove around New Zealand.
You and Michael Douglas.
Yeah, smashing up burger joints. Rejecting progress.
Just doing shots in some tiki bar. I don't know, Mike. I can't feel my legs.